Hello, my inspired entrepreneurs. Welcome to our weekly Tuesday training. So, today, what I've got for you is how to stop wasting time on social. So, these are 6 tips and tricks that you can use to save time on social media while you're building your online community. So it is so freaking easy to get sucked into social media. I don't know about you, but how many times, if you are watching live or if you're watching the replay, raise your hand if this is you. So how many times have you gone onto Facebook to do something for your business and then you get sucked into the newsfeed and totally forget what you were doing? That happens to me all the time. So these are the things, the guardrails that I've created for myself to help alleviate that and focus my time on social media. So we know that we can definitely just spend hours probably scrolling through the Facebook or Instagram feed. Instagram is my feed of choice. So I know that I can definitely get sucked into that and it can waste a ton of time. So I'm going to give you today my 6 tips and tricks on how to avoid that so that you can actually be building your community in an impactful way. So as entrepreneurs, we don't have a ton of time. It's a precious resource that we have to protect. So these little tips, even though they seem pretty basic, can really add up so that you can be spending your time elsewhere and really having a big impact in your business. All right, so tip number 1 is to stick to one social media platform. So kind of my rule for social media is you want to think about how can I be more personal? How can I create more of a connection versus the broadcast, like just going for popular. You know, we're not just trying to be like Instagram influencers here. We're trying to actually create an authentic business and create connections with people from our hearts. So personal over popular, that's my rule. So stick to one social media platform at a time. So if you are starting out on Instagram, learn everything that you can about Instagram. Really dive in. Figure out, you know, how are you going to be creating content every week? How are you going to stay up to date on new Instagram algorithm updates? Things like that, so that you have a system that really works for you. So master one system and then wait until you feel like you've really mastered that until you move on to your second platform. There is a concept in advertising called reach and frequency. So as entrepreneurs, because we have limited time, we want to be able to maximize those 2 numbers. So reach is the amount of people that you're reaching, and frequency is the amount of times that you actually reach those people. So we want to maximize those numbers. And if you are, you know, posting over 10 different social media networks, you know, maybe your reach is really wide, but your frequency is going to be really, really low. So low that nothing that you're posting is really going to have an impact. So we want to condense that and be reaching the most amount of people that we can, at least, you know, the kind of the rule of thumb is 7 times before they really get to know you. So thinking about, you know, how can I reach the most amount of people, like in the most impactful way? So that's what sticking to one social media platform is all about. So my kind of my test to see if I've mastered a social media network is if I can hand off 80% of the work to an assistant, somebody else. Can somebody else be, do I have, for example, Instagram, do I have my, you know, content plan like so well defined that I can have an assistant like find photos for me, that I can have them scheduling things for me and things like that. So if you can hand off probably 80% of the work to somebody else, then you know that you're golden, and you'll probably start to feel like, oh, I have time to be investing in something else, in another social media network. So think of your time just the same way you think about your money. We're investing our time the same way we're investing our finances in our business. All right, so that is tip number 1, stick to one social media network. All right, tip number 2 is to only spend focused attention on social media. So what I do, how I do this is before I get onto social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, I create a to-do list. So maybe there's 3 or 5 things that day that I need to get done. I will write that to-do list. I actually create a little list in Asana. If you have never used Asana, it's a really great project management tool that I just love. But I will create a little list of the things that I need to do that day before I open up Facebook, before I open up Instagram. That way, when I am on the platform, I'm very intentional and I don't get sucked into that like, oh, so-and-so got engaged and I start scrolling and then I forget what I did. I know what I came there to do because I have a list right there. I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, or Z. The other tip for this number 2, so call it 2B, is to set a timer. So once you get kind of a list of the things that you're doing regularly, you'll start to be able to track like how much something takes. Like how much time does it take you to post? How much time do you want to spend a day interacting with people? And so then set a timer. Get your tasks done. That way, oh, I need to answer 3 DMs and I only have 2 minutes left. I better hurry it up a little bit. So then also, when that timer goes off, you'll know, all right, time to move on to the next thing. All right, so if you're just joining us, we are going over 6 social media tips to help you save time with your community building, because our time is just as important as our money as entrepreneurs to be investing into our business. So we want to protect that investment. So tip number 1 was to stick to one social media platform. Tip number 2 is to only spend focused attention on social. So creating a to-do list and setting a timer before you even dive into a platform. Tip number 3 is to batch your content creation. So for example, if you are taking a lifestyle photo, maybe you're like out by a boat and you take one. I don't want you to take just one photo. I want you to take 10, because that one photo session, like you can use different angles. You can zoom in, you can, zoom out, do something wider. You can take a few photos where you're not even in the picture. So finding these time-saving things while you're creating content is super important. Another thing that you can do to batch your content is to schedule out, what I do is I schedule out all of my images for the month. And then I will, for my prompts or for my captions, what I'll do is either like make myself a little note or create a prompt. Some of them I will batch out and then just schedule, but a lot of times I like to talk about like, okay, this is what's going on right now, or I'll get some inspiration in the morning about like, oh, this is what I really want to talk about today. So I do like to give myself that flexibility to say, okay, this is what I want to talk about today, and not be locked into something already and then have to mess up my whole schedule. So what I do is I schedule out all of my photos for a month and then just kind of make notes about like what I want to talk about that day. So then if I, want to talk about something else, I'm not having to do a whole bunch of rework. All right. So that was tip number 3, is to batch your content creation. So that was, if you are creating content, maybe a photo shoot, don't take just one photo, take 10. And then to batch your scheduling. So maybe that is scheduling out all of your photos for the month. All right, tip number 4 is to create a schedule. So this kind of goes hand in hand with tip number 2 and 3, but it's a little bit different, because I want you to choose when you're actually going to be working on Instagram. So if you are somebody like me who likes to batch out weekly or monthly, have a set time that you do that every week or every month. That way, you're always getting, you're always meeting it at the same time. So a little tip there, if you're doing monthly, do it the week before the month starts. If you are doing weekly, do it the Friday before that week starts, because it is such a load off your shoulders Monday morning, sitting down at your computer to know, oh, I already know everything that I'm doing on social, and I can kind of focus on other things and get my week going. So create a schedule, put it in your calendar, when you're going to be scheduling things out, maybe batching, or maybe there's a certain time of day that you like to go in and interact with your followers. So those are just a couple ideas of things that you would want to put into your schedule. All right. Tip number 5 is what I like to call OPC, or other people's content. So in finance, there's this concept of OPM, or other people's money, and how you can be leveraging somebody else's assets to build your own portfolio, your own investments. So it's kind of the same thing. You want to be using other people's content to be building your business. So how can you do this? One, on Instagram, you can always be regramming people's things. So maybe there's an influencer that you really like their quotes. You can be regramming that. You can maybe run a contest for your customers to be making photos with your products in them and then reposting what somebody's already creating for you. If you are on Instagram and you're looking for visual photos, I always recommend to people to be looking through stock photos, because that can help you out a lot. Just trying to create a photo every single day can be a daunting task. So looking for these ways that you can use something that somebody has already created. So that would be stock photography, your customers' photography, and also influencers or somebody else that you would want to repost that aligns with your audience. All right, my very last tip, and this is kind of a fun one, is to keep track of your social ideas. So this kind of goes with any kind of content creation, but have you ever just sat down at your computer and been like, okay, what should I post today? And you're just looking at a blank screen. That's like the worst time to get your best ideas, is looking at that little blinking cursor. So for Instagram, or really any other social media network, as you're getting these ideas, I recommend that you create a bank. Where you can just put them someplace where you can access it on your phone. I like to use messages on my iPhone, so that I'm like, oh, that would be a really kind of a great prompt, something that I could use for a caption. Or maybe I run across a image on Instagram, then I'll like screenshot it or save it, bookmark it. Because we always kind of think like, oh, I'll totally remember this idea. It's such a good idea. But then when you go to sit down, you don't remember it. So those genius ideas, I want you to keep track of them so you can share them with your audience. So that is tip number 6, is to keep track of those ideas and create a bank of social media ideas that you can add to and then use at a later date when you are batching and creating your content. All right, so that was my 6 tips to help you save time on social media so that you can build your online community in an impactful way. Number 1 was stick to one social media platform. Number 2 is to only spend focused attention on social media. 3, batch your content creation. 4, create a schedule for when you are going to be doing your social media or when you're going to be doing your batch creation. 5, leverage other people's content. And 6, keep track of those genius social media ideas that you have so you're not stuck staring at that blank screen just trying to figure out what to write. So thank you so much for joining me. To wrap up, if you would like expert advice on how you are building your tribe, I have a few spots available for my free 20-minute community building assessment. You'll find the link to that in the description for this video. Basically what we do in this assessment is walk through your process, and then we kind of break it apart, and I'll give you a couple recommendations on how you can make it more impactful, maybe ways that you can be saving time or things that you can be doing to have further reach or more impact building your online community. So again, thank you so much for joining me for this Tuesday training. I so appreciate everyone that shows up every Tuesday for this. And I will see you in the Facebook group and next Tuesday for your next Tuesday training. Thanks again.